Certainly, not all meetings go as planned, do they? But you've probably led a few of these successful meetings, the kind where people are locked in, ideas are flying around, kind of meeting where you walk out impressed, feeling proud and like you actually got something done. And then you try to run the exact same meeting 2 weeks later, and it's crickets. Here's what I've figured out after years of leading live workshops and coaching executives on communication. The difference almost always traces back to the first 1 to 2 minutes of the meeting. It's not the agenda, it's not the slides, it's the opening. So today, I'm going to share with you 3 specific things that you can do to start off any meeting in a way that gets people engaged immediately and then keeps them that way. Here's what most of the leaders that I coach tell me. They say, Andrea, I don't know why some of my meetings just work and others totally fall flat. And I can't figure out how to make the good ones happen on purpose. Does this sound familiar? What's interesting is that it's almost never a content problem. The agenda is probably more than fine. The people in the room are capable, but something about the energy at the start of the meeting sets the whole tone. If you've lost people in the first couple of minutes, you are fighting an uphill battle until the end. Now, if you do an online search or ask AI, how should I start my meeting? You'll see the same advice recycled everywhere. Tell a story. Get people emotionally invested. And here's the thing. I'm not going to tell you that stories don't work because they certainly do. But if you've ever tried to shoehorn a story into the top of a project status meeting and then watched people check their phones, then you know that a forced story can somehow be worse than no story at all. So instead, I want to give you 3 things that actually work every time, regardless of the type of meeting, the size of the room, or whether you consider yourself a natural storyteller or not. Technique number 1, tell everyone where the bus is going. Here's my question for you. Would you get on a bus if you had no idea where it was headed? Obviously not, right? But that's exactly what many meeting leaders do. They ask people to get on the bus without telling them where it's headed. They send a calendar invite with a vague title. They kick off with, okay, let's get started. And then they wonder why people seem checked out. Your team is sitting there doing a mental calculation in the first 30 seconds. Is this worth my time? I mean, I have to sit here, but is it in my best interest to pay attention and to participate? Or maybe I should pretend to listen while I check my email. Is it worth my time and attention? And here's the thing. If you don't answer that question for them, their brain answers it for them, usually with probably not. The fix here is simple. Before you get into any content, spend 60 seconds telling them exactly why this meeting is worth their attention. Not just the topic, not even just the meeting objective. I'm talking about the stakes. What is at stake here? Why it matters to the people around the table. And by the way, if it doesn't matter to them, why did you invite them? So, what decision are you going to make in this meeting? What problem are you solving today that we haven't been able to solve asynchronously? What will they walk out knowing or being able to do that they couldn't do before the meeting started? You really need to clarify this. I actually use this exact tactic every time I record a podcast episode. Before I get into any content, I tell you, the listener, specifically what you're going to get, what you're going to learn. So, before your next meeting, write down this sentence. By the end of this meeting, you will... what? If you can't fill in that blank clearly, your agenda needs work before your opening does. Okay, so that's the first technique. Tell your meeting participants where the bus is headed and why they need to get on the bus. The second technique is what I call encouraging the nod. I want you to think about the last time you were listening to someone. It could be a speaker, maybe it was a presentation, maybe a podcast like you're listening to right now, and you found yourself nodding along. Like, yeah, that's exactly right. That's my experience, or that's what I want. That nod is not accidental. The best communicators design for it. And you can do the same thing at the top of your meeting. Open your meeting with 1 or 2 statements that name your attendees' shared reality. Something like, I know we've all been in meetings all week, and I want to make sure this one earns a spot on your calendar. This is well worth your time. Or you could be more specific. I heard from a few of you that this decision we need to make has been making you feel stuck. And that is exactly what we're going to fix here today. Suddenly, you see people nodding their head. And when you name people's actual experience, especially if you name a pain point, they lean in and they nod. And a nodding person is an engaged person. The science backs this up. Research on rapport and engagement shows that physical agreement cues like nodding your head actually increase your sense of alignment with the speaker. It's like our brains believe our bodies, just like our bodies believe our brains. As the meeting leader, you might also nod yourself and encourage the meeting participants to mirror you. You're not manipulating anyone here. You're just meeting them where they already are and calling it out. So here's what I encourage you to do. Write out 2 sentences for your next meeting opener that describe your participants' feeling, a pain point, an experience, or something that they're seeking. Test it by yourself. Will this encourage nodding? If not, try again. If so, you nailed it. Okay, now we've covered 2 techniques to maximize engagement in your meetings. 1, tell them where the bus is headed. And 2, encourage the nod. Now for technique number 3, get them talking early. I would say this is one of the most powerful of all the techniques. There is a huge opportunity for you here. Here's the principle. The earlier someone participates in a meeting, the more engaged they will be for the entire meeting. And this isn't just my intuition. This is backed by research on group dynamics. I like to think of it as creating momentum or encouraging momentum. When people contribute early, they develop a sense of ownership over what's happening in the meeting. They've got momentum. Staying engaged stops feeling like a chore and starts to feel like following through on something that you've already started. And let me tell you something. I've tested this purposefully in my workshops. Same material, similar audience. When I encourage engagement early, the workshop is always more successful, in large part because people stay engaged. I encourage you to do the same thing in the meetings that you lead. Get as many people as possible talking or somehow engaging in the first 5 minutes. There are a few different ways that you can do this, depending on the context, who's sitting around the table, the number of meeting participants, and so on. You could kick off your meeting with a quick round of self-introductions, or you could ask everyone to answer a question with a hand gesture, like a thumbs up or a thumbs down or a count, like, tell me, is it 1 or 2 or 5 or 10? You get the idea. If you're virtual, you could drop a 1-question poll into the chat. I find that much easier than creating breakout groups. But often, breakout groups work really well. It's a great way to get people brainstorming and talking, whether you're virtual or in person. You could run a short breakout where pairs have to answer a question like, what would make this meeting a success for you? Or what's the most important thing that we need to consider to make the decision that we're going to make in this meeting? You get the idea. It does not need to be elaborate. It just needs to happen before people have had too long to settle into passive observer mode. Because here's the thing. Silence in a meeting is sticky. The momentum works both ways. Once you've been quiet for 10 minutes, asking them to speak up feels like a big, big ask. But if they've already participated and spoken, that barrier's gone. Momentum kicks in. So, look at your next meeting agenda and identify the earliest possible opportunity where you can design a moment where participants actually participate. A poll, a share, a show of hands. Put it in the first 5 minutes. It's not negotiable. So, let's bring this all together now. The next time you're leading a meeting, before you go into the room, make sure you've answered these 3 questions. Number 1, have I told them where the bus is going? Do they know what we're deciding, solving, or leaving with? 2, have I encouraged a nod? Have I named their reality in a way that makes them feel seen even before we start? And number 3, have I built in early participation? Is there a way to get voices in the room in the first 5 minutes? Maybe even in the first 2 minutes? These are 3 things together that make up probably an extra 3 minutes of preparation for you, but they're going to make a huge difference between a meeting where people are fully engaged versus one where they're mentally halfway out the door, checking their email, essentially checked out. And look, none of this requires you to be a charismatic storyteller or even an extroverted entertainer. This is about being intentional and tactical in the first few minutes of your meeting. You got this. Thanks for listening and talk soon.